Okay, I think we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to another live stream. Maybe you're looking for an interesting used bike or interesting used bike parts. Today, we're going to talk with Rob, the owner slash founder of a new website called BikeList, which has some pretty cool parts on it. We're going to talk about the backstory of how it came about and why maybe you should check it out. But if you guys have been enjoying these live streams, definitely consider supporting the channel by joining us on Patreon or hopping into the merch store. We've still got a bunch of these Punky Brewster silicone grips, which I absolutely love. Hopefully you're familiar with who Punky Brewster is, as well as some party paste stickers. And you guys know, channel is not sponsored. It's literally like a bake sale every month to keep this content going. But with all that said, let's learn about BikeList and have Rob enter the chat. How's it going, Rob?
Good. How are you doing? So wait, those grips, one's blue and one's pink. They're like, that's pretty cool.
Yes,
that's
they're hot. So you don't have to buy a pair of pink or blue ones, and just one and done. Yeah,
very cool. And okay, is that like a thick grip, kind of like an Owry kind of
similar, thickness? but softer. I've got like carpal tunnel.
Oh, nice.
When I ride flat bars, I just get these shooting pains, and I've tried ergon grips and stuff, but these are. I was trying to explain this to someone, and it's like noise cancellation for your hands. It's nice. It's not foam; it just absorbs the chatter. Cool. Well, let's hop into it. I'm going to bring up your site so the people that are joining us on the chat know what the heck we're talking about here. So you've got a website, BikeList. What's the elevator pitch? Who's it for? Why should people check it out?
The elevator pitch. So it's a new peer-to-peer marketplace dedicated for bikes. So think of it as an eBay for bikes. Same basic concept as eBay, but just for bikes, bike parts, accessories, new and used. Obviously, mostly used, but we're getting a few new things on there. It was inspired originally by a site called Reverb. I'm also into guitar stuff. And Reverb launched, I think, around 2013, 2014, as a way to just provide a little more of a curated experience than eBay and build a little more community around that. I've also been in the collector car world, and there's another one that inspired it called Bring a Trailer. Again, kind of the same thing, like just trying to do a little better job than eBay, basically, for enthusiasts. So.
Cool. How long has the site been around?
So we formed the company in January of last year and started development. And we built the thing. We didn't just get some software package and launch it. We built it from the ground up. It's 3 of us. So we launched the site in June, kind of a soft launch with no marketing, and got our first sale in July, which was kind of exciting. So basically, people have kind of known about it since summer.
Yeah. So what was your background before, doing BikeList?
I've been doing a lot of internet and startup-y stuff for the last while, mostly in the car space. But I've been into bikes since I was a little kid. I was, really into BMX when I was a little kid. And then I kind of begged my way into a bike shop job when I was 16. And I just love bike shops. And I spent the next 10 years in bike shops through high school, college, after college, because it was the early Clinton years. There's no jobs. And I was in San Francisco and just riding and still racing a bit. And bike shop jobs were fun, easy to get. Once you're a bike mechanic, you can pretty much get a job in a day's notice. They're always kind of sought after. So I worked at a bunch of shops in SF.
And you worked at Palo Alto, right? That's kind of like a very historic shop.
Yeah, Palo Alto was awesome. It's still there. I think as you pointed out in your last show,
they bought the building.
They own they'd owned it since probably like the 40s or something. Bernie Hoffaker started it. It was more of a general store in like the 40s and slowly morphed into a bike shop. And then Avocet was the same folks. And so when I was there, a super exciting time because there's the Avocet racing team. Greg LeMond had raced on it, some amazing athletes. And then Tom Ritchie was in there, because we were selling his bike through the catalog.
Yeah, they were one of the first shops to sell Ritchie's, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and one of the first big catalogs. It's funny when people are worried about the internet putting bike shops out of business. In the 80s, people are saying the catalogs are going to put bike shops out of business. So it didn't really happen. But for a 16-year-old kid, and at first they would make me just clean the bathroom and stuff like that. And then I was working in the mail order department, but like with a wall of Campagnolo stuff was like pretty inspiring. And like Jobst Brandt, like famous, would be in there. I was starstruck and asking him questions about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it was just a wonderful place to kind of be and kind of grow up.
There.
So.
We were there recently, I think like maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard about all the history of Palo Alto cyclery and was expecting to see more of that showcased, but
I know
they've like they kind of acknowledge it, but it's like a totally modern shop. I was a little bit bummed.
Yeah, I drop by all the time. My folks are still there, and because I like to keep tabs on it, and I have the same reaction now that you do. Like, I feel they could do a little more with it. It looks complete. It's more like a boutique feel. It doesn't feel like it's a cool shop. It doesn't feel like a really as vibrant as a shop. But it's also, you have to recognize what's happened to that street, and it's like a completely different world. It's kind of frightening. The change.
I wish that they leaned into the history a little bit more.
I agree. No, I totally agree. And the shop felt a little bigger before, and there is more of an upstairs because the mail order and Avocet were up there, and a lot of the wheel building we're doing upstairs, and Wheelsmith started just around the corner, like in the alleyway, and then they expanded, and then they were a block away on Hamilton. A lot of people from my era then kind of quit and went to Wheelsmith, and then Wheelsmith changed a bunch of times too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, back to BikeList.
Yeah.
Who is the person that's going to use this? Who do you imagine the customer or user being?
Yeah, I think, and this is again using Reverb and Bring a Trailer. It definitely is always easier and more fun to start with what I would call the enthusiast, and then try to get interest and excitement there, because you get cooler stuff like what you're
sure.
We don't want just a mix of like brand new no-name parts and stuff. And eBay has been we're obviously getting some of those users, but it's fun to have just cool quirky builds too. And starting with like Instagram is one of the first places we're just kind of talking to people about that. It's easy to find those people on Instagram. But it's, the goal is to kind of have a fun site that you can discover stuff that you might not have even been looking for. Like, oh, that's kind of cool, like those cranks. I love.
I know. I've been staring at these cranks for the last couple of weeks. I'm glad he dropped the price a little.
Yeah, they're not cheap, but I think, to be fair, they almost cost that much back in the mid-90s. They're gorgeous. That's the second generation XTR crank. I think I remember when they came out, and I was like, whoa. Those are the ones you have in what we used to call the jewel case, right up front in the shop.
Right.
Look in there and be like, wow.
Or even these guys, the Chatterley cranks. These are pretty sweet.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Those are really cool. Yeah, just so and this was the same thing about Bring a Trailer, and like just to go on there, and any given day there might be some new cool stuff. Maybe you're not even just fun to look at. And we want to slowly build more of a kind of community feel. So we've layered in private messaging and some of this stuff, and we'll build up kind of the member profiles more and stuff on time. But just kind of going slow and getting feedback from people to see what works and what they like.
Right. Yeah, when you first contacted me, or when I first heard about BikeList, I was pretty stoked. There were a couple like Bruce Gordon's, in the vintage, this Cogswell PR touring bike.
That thing is cool.
This is one of the first kind of quasi modern 650B rando style bikes.
Right up your alley.
Yeah. I would have bought it if it was like about 4 sizes smaller.
I was trying to get my co-founder to buy it, but it would fit him. He's about 6 feet.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. What size are you looking for?
Usually like somewhere between the 52, 54.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to pawn that MB2 off on you. I think that would have paid it.
So what does it take to start up an account? Can anyone sign up? Like
It's really, and we tried to make it as quick as possible. Create an account. We integrate with Stripe for secure payment, and that was the whole idea here, is that we want to have a safe and secure place to transact. There's so much scamming on Craigslist and Facebook. I mean, you can definitely find great stuff there, and if you're lucky enough to live in a place like, let's say, the Bay Area with this amazing stuff on Craigslist every day, that's awesome. But not everyone's that lucky. And then forums are great too, right? But sometimes you don't know if it's really still for sale, and you have to. But we wanted a site where you could literally just go buy something. So we're integrated with Stripe, so you have to kind of authenticate yourself with them. But after that, creating a listing is super fast. We didn't want to have a million checkboxes and forms to fill out like eBay. So people love how quickly they can just list, and it's we don't have an app per se, but it's a very mobile friendly site, and you can just upload stuff right off your phone quickly.
So if you're a seller, you set the price. There's no like bidding, but if you're a buyer, you can kind of counter and negotiate.
If you're a seller, you can choose to do it just a fixed price, or you can add in make offer. And so we added make offer in a few months after launch, and most sellers are doing that.
Yeah.
What the one advantage of not having it is, though, that you can just buy, but you can always just buy if you're willing to pay whatever the asking price is. So, but yeah, it's fun seeing the little back and forth sometimes, you know.
Right. So I'm curious, like how does a site make money? Is it, you guys take a transaction fee, or like what?
Yeah, it's a flat fee that includes all the credit card fees, and so it's a 9.9. We wanted to be under 10%, so we're with 9.9. Credit cards are about 3%, but that's included in that 9.9. And so you know, and then you get us kind of backing you up for that too. You know, we're going to make sure the transaction goes smoothly. So when somebody buys, we hold the money until the seller ships, and we have proof that it's been shipped.
Okay. Here's a question from Steve. He doesn't mind selling nationwide. Curious as to why Stripe versus, say, PayPal, or what other options are.
Yeah, we looked at PayPal first. That's a great question. We looked at, and I wish my co-founder was here, because he went really into the weeds on this stuff. PayPal. So when you use it's a little different when you use PayPal on a site like ours versus, like, let's say a forum or something where you can just pay someone with PayPal. If you're using PayPal, and I could be getting this wrong, Dan will probably yell at me. You would have to set up, as a seller on our site, a business account, which is a little complicated. Stripe is used by like Etsy, OfferUp. I think even Walmart. They're like one of the biggest payment processors. So we've gotten a lot of feedback about that, and we're still considering all options, and we may add in PayPal. But the first one out of the gate, we decided, we actually started working on the PayPal implementation, and then seemed like it was going to be more of a hassle. So PayPal had kind of this name brand left over from the eBay days, but I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question. And again, this is like one of the main things that comes up a lot, but the focus was just on very secure transaction, and Stripe seemed good to us. So.
Right. Cool. Let's see what else. How has the growth been? So you guys launched not too long ago. Up and down, steady
month over month, you know, going up in the right direction. It's noticed funny things, like the beginning of the month is often quiet, and toward the end of the month, everything goes crazy. We were expecting a really quiet December because Christmas and everything else, and all the terrible news about the economy, but we had a strong December. One of the trends that we started noticing in November or thereabouts is we started getting bike shops listing with us as well. because when we launched over the summer, bike shops still didn't have that much inventory, but there's been this crazy, all of a sudden having too much. Like some of my local shops, a Yeti dealer, he ordered 5 Yetis a year and a half ago, and they all showed up on his.
Yeah.
It's like, God. And so that's been happening to a lot of shops. So, and if you're depending on the area you're in, if you're, it might be easier to sell nationally sometimes to help move some inventories.
Yeah. I mean, I think I thought that was like the interesting part of BikeList is if like shops used it, because
Yeah.
so a lot of shops don't have an online storefront. They might be sitting on inventory. They could do the eBay thing, but this is kind of an interesting option to have like a, brick and mortar businesses listing
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And then the other kind of shops that we have is we have a special program for nonprofit bike shops.
Okay.
We waive all their fees, so they get it. We even cover their credit card fees for
Oh,
them.
cool. Yeah.
So we have a bunch of, and I just love nonprofit bike shops. I used to, when I was running the bike building at start to finish, I used to hire kids from probably one of the first nonprofits. It was in San Francisco called Pedal Revolution. I think it just closed down last year. They would train kids, who were homeless, how to fix bikes, and it was just awesome. There's great ones in Seattle. You probably know some of these, like Bike Works and stuff. Pedal It Forward, which is in Arkansas, is selling on our site. If you're on the homepage, a bunch of stuff. And so if you buy one of those, all proceeds go straight to the nonprofit.
Right.
And it's great for nonprofits, I think, too, because they get sometimes stuff dumped on them that they can't really sell to, or that's not really right for their main demographic. So, so we wanted to have that. So.
Yeah. I'd love to see more co-ops on, because they usually have like a stockpile of really interesting stuff.
Wild stuff. Have you been into? I was coming back from Arizona visiting my brother. There's one in Tucson. Have you been to it? It's called like
BikeList. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That place blew me away. I thought it was so cool. We have a great one here in Bellingham called the Hub too. But yeah, they're all a little different. They all have slightly different goals and stuff, but they're just all cool. I really love nonprofit shops. So.
Yeah. So here's a question. Are there many listings in Canada yet? Like, what is the distribution of, buyers and sellers?
So that's the second question we always get. So I'm glad we're getting them in order. So we're not set up legally in Canada yet. So you can't really buy from us or sell from us if you're in Canada yet. So we're going to be looking at it. It's just like a whole other bunch of tax nonsense we have to figure out. People have used, and I don't even know if I can legally say this or whatever, but there's like mail forwarding companies. I was terrified once, a very high-end frame, the credit card didn't match the shipping address, but we ended up, it got sent to one of these forwarding companies that sent it off to Japan.
Right.
So that's the only workaround right now, but stay tuned. We definitely, Canada's on the list, so we're working toward that. But for now, it's unless you have a friend that could then ship it to you, friend stateside that could then ship it to you, it's going to be hard. So.
Right. Are you doing much active recruitment with bike shops or bike co-ops?
I reached out to a couple of local ones, and then we just put an article in the footer, and people seem to be finding us. So I get a few requests, a month from the local shops. In terms of regular shops, we've been starting to go, like we went to the Cabda show, if you've heard of that. It's a business, it's a B2B show. So we went to the one in LA and immediately got a few shops there. Dan's going to go to the one in Chicago. And I was at the Philly Bike Expo last year, so I met a few shop people. So we got a few from there. So it's fun to have bike shops on. You're going to get a good bike. And also, the other good thing is about bike shops is they price their stuff. They know how to price their stuff. There are private sellers who definitely price stuff sometimes too high. You're like, that's really cool, but that price is ridiculous.
Right.
But bike shops usually price it. This is like it's priced to sell, so that's cool. So we've had some very good deals through bike shops on the site. So.
Yeah. So going through the site, let's see, what's What's like the most popular category of bike?
Mountain bike for sure.
Okay.
So we have a lot of mountain bikes. Gravel bike would be number 2, and then we also worked with a BMX influencer. I like BMX. I think it's cool, and it never gets kind of left out of the rest of the bike industry.
Right.
But, we worked with a really cool influencer, Rad BMX Builds. He just moved to Arizona, and so we get a lot of BMX stuff too.
Yeah.
I got the first set of the reissue Motomags, and we did some stuff with that, and it's just fun. BMX is fun, but yeah, for the most part, mountain bike is probably number 1. We sold a Madone a couple of weeks ago, which blew me away.
What? I would totally buy this.
I know that seller. That thing's awesome.
A CSIP for like $600. Are you kidding?
Well, it's just the frame. Just so
it's just a frame. Okay, yeah, that's still pretty good.
It's still pretty good.
Yeah, I think one thing I appreciate about the site is that it runs the price gamut.
It does.
You know, I feel like if you
from mild to wild.
Yeah, like going on Pro's Closet, like it's definitely, you know, they're not going to put a $350 bike on.
No.
You know, so like there's, you know, you might luck into to finding something you can afford and a good deal and actually take home. Which is nice.
And to me, one of the most fun things going on is just like interest in 90s mountain bikes. Like there's,
I feel like that could be its own category. Just 90s mountain bike.
It's true. Well, we have a little vintage category, and the majority are like 90s mountain bikes. But yeah, no, that's it's fun. We had Old Shovel. We did a video or two with him, and he listed a couple of his 90s mountain bikes on here, so they're kind of mixed in. A few of them sold. I think a few of them.
Yeah, I think there's one here that's
that one's really cool. I got so Novara did that, and that's like the REI brand, so he kind of made a clone. In car world, you call that a clone. But I have a 88 Ibis for my that I got for my wife with a custom paint job. But they're great bikes. That's an amazing bike.
Yeah,
you get the old school brake under the chainstays, whatever. I forget what they called those. They were kind of a pain. They lasted like 2 years. They came out in 89 and went away. Or it came out in 88 and went away in 89, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is, you know, Ritchie Ultra for 2,500.
Not terrible.
You know, it's reasonable. It's not like a, you know, finding a diamond under a rock or anything, but it's, you know, for a complete bike and then a Ritchie.
Yeah, totally. Somebody made a funny comment about those, like how long the cable housing was. I remember on that.
Let's see. So speaking of Pro's Closet, like how, aside from that, like how do you guys differ in case people are confused?
So Pro's Closet owns the inventory. They buy bikes, they kind of certify them, clean them up, and then they resell them. We are just a platform. So that's the main difference. They have a much bigger operation, you know, operationally, that's very complicated business. But you know, they do a great job at that. But then they also, like to your point, they're not going to have any cheap bikes. I'm interested to see that they started selling new All Cities in the last couple of weeks, which I thought was a bit of a pivot. They, I think, are sitting on a lot of inventory right now. I mean, it was interesting during the worst of the COVID shortage that they could sell like basically a 5-year old Santa Cruz mountain bike for the price of a new Santa Cruz, which I was like, who would pay that? Because it used to be, in my mind, always once you buy a bike and roll out the front door like a new bike, you've lost 50% of the value. That's what I always thought. And then that changed in the last couple of years with COVID. Sometimes they'd be worth more after you bought them. So the pricing's been all over the map. But yeah, so I think I think Pro's Closet has a lot of bikes. I mean, they're a great place if you're looking for a late model, higher end, full suspension mountain bike. And they also have some really cool kind of quirky custom stuff too, but no cheap bikes. But yeah, I think I used to buy parts from him when he was just an eBay seller, because I used to do a lot of buying and selling on eBay.
Yeah. So it seems like I've not sold through Pro's Closet, but since they take it in, they do some maintenance. As
Yeah.
the seller, probably eats up your margin, also. So
Yeah. So if you sell to the Pro's Closet, you're out. It's not a consignment kind of deal. Like you just take whatever they give you. And I think they were for a while giving pretty good money for bikes. I'm assuming now maybe they're not, or they might have slowed down on their buying. I don't know exactly where they're at. And I think I've been on classic car, help run some big classic car auctions. There's a little bit, once the market kind of starts shifting down or up, there's usually that lag time before a seller really realizes, oh, I guess I should have sold it 6 months ago. Like it's
right.
not worth, you're not going to get that money anymore, so.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're involved in other kind of vintage selling circles, like with cars and
Yeah, cars and
guitars.
guitars. Yeah.
What are I mean, do bicycles follow the similar trend?
That's a really interesting question. I think the guitar world and the classic car world are much more kind of mature in that sense, but I feel like 80s and 90s bikes are kind of like 60s and 70s muscle cars now. Like they made a lot of them then. There was a real big fad in those years, same with muscle cars. And people are starting to realize this is a little bit of an end of an era there. Like, the pros stopped racing on steel bikes in the 90s. And so that's kind of it. Like I'm obsessed with Eddie Merckx bikes. I have 6 of them. I've got a Team Motorola Merckx. I have a 711 Merckx.
Nice.
I consider those like the coolest rolling, awesome. It's like an old muscle car. So I started buying those up years ago because I was, they've actually gotten pretty expensive. And then the 90s mountain bikes are starting to go up. The craziest prices, and you probably know this, is actually the vintage BMX stuff is off the charts.
Huh.
I still have my old Super Goose in my parents' shed, and I snapped a picture of it years ago and put it on just in a discussion board on a cardboard, and I had like 10 offers to buy it. Like they're worth more than these, fat chances and stuff. They're worth
Interesting.
crazy.
Why do you think that is? Why is vintage BMX so hot?
Nostalgia. It's like baby boomer nostalgia. I'm not baby boomer, Gen X, my generation, people in their 50s. We were crazy in the 70s about those things, like crazy. A lot of, and it's interesting too. I think the kind of SC bikes and bringing back the PK Ripper is also kind of brought back some interest, which I think is really neat. I love the kind of wheelie scene going on in the cities and stuff now. I think that's really cool. So, but yeah. So I think bikes are never like super. They're not gonna. It's not gonna be like an air cooled Porsche kind of situation, like going through the roof. But if you're not gonna lose money if you bought a nice 90s fat chance, probably.
Yeah. I feel like, it seems like, on the Radivis a couple years ago, he pivoted pretty hard towards mountain biking, and the last couple years, like really, kind of the esoteric 90s mountain bike stuff. And I feel like that's probably pumping the market also.
I'm sure. Yeah. And they go up and down. Like if you look at the muscle car prices, especially the higher end ones, really, I mean, up and down like crazy waves. So I think you'll always see the same thing here. But yeah, it's just, it's mostly just fun. I just think it's fun. And what's good about bikes versus cars is they don't take up nearly as much space. You don't have to change the oil. You don't have to insure them.
It's true. You can hoard more of them.
You can really hoard them. I've got 20 in my basement.
Yeah, like for the price of one really good muscle car, you can have like a bike
crazy, crazy collection of stuff. So,
nice.
But yeah, and then I also I like mixing stuff. Like I had Sean Walling of Soulcraft build me a custom gorgeous frame like 8 years ago, and then I built it up. I always like silver bike parts, and then I kind of like you. I don't like 12 speeds or all this, so I just built it up with some nice 9-speed Ultegra, and I thought it was awesome. Yeah. Some people are like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, it's cool. Looks great," and it works. indestructible drivetrain.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all my bikes always end up being this weird, these mutts a little bit, unless I'm going for some like the Motorola Mercs, like trying to like match exactly what Andy Hampton was riding or something. But,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Period correct.
Period correct. Yeah.
So Rob here asked a question. What about sending parts, frames, etc. to you list and sell for the going rate? It sounds like warehousing. Is that kind of
yeah, we're not buying anything. I would probably be tempted myself, but my co-founder would yell at me because no, because I was like, well, we could just start buying some stuff just to make, because my excuse is always like, well, we'll make some really cool content and then sell it. So I might still do a little of it. So if you sent me a private message, I'd be like, maybe.
I think it would be interesting. You could
But
have
it would
like
be Rob buying it, not BikeList buying
it. Have like a featured, find or something, and
just... we definitely want to do a lot more of that as we can. Like, and this, like, it's a lot of work running a little business.
Right.
So
yeah. Cool. Well, we've got 126 people in the chat. If you guys have questions for Rob about BikeList, also curious about where you guys find interesting used bike parts. Are you eBay or do the Russian roulette that it's Craigslist?
Craigslist is, to me, is awesome. For me, it's awesome as a buyer. I never like selling on it. I was once selling one of my Mercs, and this guy was like, "Can I do a test ride?" And I remember doing test rides in bike shops, and we'd always take their credit card and their
right.
And so I was like, I was so surprised by it that I said yes. And then I was like thinking, as he's riding around the block, is he going to come out? B, is he going to, And so at that point, I was like, I will only sell on eBay.
Yeah.
And I'll only buy on Craigslist, which worked for a while. And then I started having some annoying things selling on eBay, and I kind of stopped selling on eBay. But...
Yeah. Our Craigslist here in Missoula is not very good. Just like the inventory isn't very inspiring. And I just hate the back and forth, as a buyer or a seller. So it's nice to just kind of have
a comment about BMX was a total baby boomer. Originally, kids in the late 50s, early 60s were the first stars. Yeah, so Stu Thompson was totally my hero when I was a kid. But that would, for me, so Stu Thompson was like, I think he started racing in 74, 75, right around then. And I was like, I had a poster of him on my wall when, in 76 or something. Awesome. That was just an awesome time. So yeah, I'm an old Gen X because I'm born in 68, but definitely, yeah, probably some of the younger boomers as well should be included in that.
Yeah. So here's a good question: shipping on BikeList, like who's responsible for setting the price and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So shipping, the seller sets the rate. Eventually we'll build in a little better functionality so it could be more easily adjusted for the customer, like where they're shipping. Right now, though, I usually say just take your worst case scenario and list that as your shipping. For bikes, if you haven't used Bike Flights, we always recommend it. They've negotiated crazy rates with UPS. So, and the other, if you haven't shipped a bike or parts in a couple of years, you will be horrified by how much it costs to ship now. It's way worse, but you're still going to get like half or 2/3 the price that you would if you just walked into UPS. So, BikeList is, Bike Flights is awesome. We looked at some other stuff with partners for the parts and stuff, but there's not that, it's a little less of a kind of delta. So, but we looked at like Shippo as an option, but yeah, basically a seller sets.
What is the going rate for Bike Flights? Let's say, worst case scenario across the country.
I would say if you want to make sure you're covered and it's a big fat mountain bike, it could be as high as like 150, 175 even. I've seen a couple of people. I always put down just like 100 or something, 125. If you end up just shifting like on the same, like from Washington down to California, it might be like 80 or bucks.
Yeah. I remember the first time we used bike flights, I think they're still with FedEx. They hadn't changed carriers. And to go from, where were we flying from? I think it was from Portland to like Palm Springs. It was like $50.
Yeah, not
Back then.
bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. Yeah, and then the other trick is, of course, packing the bike, which is an art in and of yourself. I always say, if you're scared about it, take it to your local bike shop and pay them to do it.
Yeah.
I've had some terrible experiences as a buyer. It was literally, I had this, and again, it was an Eddie Merckx, gorgeous, like, and the paint jobs on these things are off the charts, and this one was immaculate. And I had the guy take it to a shop, and the shop then gave it to their like most young, inexperienced employee, who left the pedals loose in the bottom. So you imagine the thing shipping and these pedals just going around like a washing machine. So I get this gorgeous Weinman Works that's purple and pink, and it's got chips all. Very sad. So yeah, that's a real art. We had shot a fun video with Hannah Bergman up here in Bellingham. She's on the Red Bull team. And I was like, well, if anyone knows how to pack a bike, it's her. So she did it. And because she's also an ex-bike mechanic. So we did a fun how to pack your bike video with her.
Nice. Let's see. Same H says, trying to find a good place to list a Nobilette. I think this would be a pretty good site.
Awesome. Yeah.
Especially if it's a 52.
Yeah. Especially if it's for us. Yeah. No, I love the niche stuff, and that's what's fun. And that's why like just the wacky stuff that maybe people aren't searching for on eBay. Right. Like my example that I used for Bring a Trailer is I had a 1972 Chrysler 9-passenger wagon. So like the ultimate Brady Bunch mobile. It was original. I got it one owner, white with wood grain all the way across, gorgeous car. And it was just too big for Seattle. It was just ridiculous. So I was like, I'm going to sell it. And I was like, if I put it on eBay, no one's going to go into eBay and type in, I'm looking for a Chrysler 9-passenger wagon. But if you put it on Bring a Trailer, it's just going to be put out there in front of a bunch of car nuts, and who are going to be like, well, I wasn't looking for one until today. And there was a crazy bidding war on that thing. It was so fun. And then it went to a great buyer, like really appreciated it. So yeah, niche, that's the kind of thing that we love and we really want on the site, is crazy niche kooky stuff, you know.
Yeah. Have you been able to tap into like the vintage bike collector forum / market?
A little bit. I've talked to some of them. There is a group that I would say are just probably, I think they're waiting to see how we do for a while first. But definitely, and there's a fair number of that kind of crowd at the Philly Bike Expo who started posting stuff on us. There's some really crazy high end. If you start talking like the 70s, 80s campy stuff, we don't quite have those. Like we don't have any like $8,000 restored De Rosa with 50th anniversary campy on here yet. But maybe eventually,
what is the coolest like vintage bike that's popped up on your site?
Someone did this incredible restoration of a Salsa La Raza, and he did it. I think it had originally been red, but the frame needed to be repaired, so he repaired it. Had a pro frame builder do it, and he did the chili pepper, did the chili pepper paint scheme on it so it's white with all these little red and green chili peppers. Gorgeous with XT. It was like an 88. Super, super cool bike. And that sold almost immediately. I put it on the Instagram and everyone lost their mind.
Nice.
That's the total Instagram hero bike. And that's the other thing that's fun about these is I just know what it's going to do well on Instagram. Kind of if I just we know a Trek Madone's not going to do that well on Instagram, but a 90s mountain bike, people can go crazy.
For sure. Let's see. So Jared Bunk from Hope says it'd be rad to see bike flights BikeList and integration.
I agree, and I have been talking to them, and I think that is something we'll work toward. Right now, we just kind of link to them, but yeah, no, Bike Flights is great. They seem like a great company.
Cool. We got Tom here from Tomcat Bikes. I suspect there might be a few people in the chat that either work at bike shops or own bike shops. Like,
awesome.
Is BikeList something that you guys would consider, or do you have your own online store?
I know that some shops sell on eBay. Obviously, I think any place where a shop can get a secure payment and that's easy to list on is going to probably be a good option for them, as opposed to like a Facebook Marketplace, which is going to be hard to manage the payments and all the crazy questions,
right?
Stuff. But
so this
yes,
this is going to come up eventually. So like what
our favorite? Okay, this is the other way. And again, my co-founder got super involved in this, so hopefully I won't completely screw this up, but I will give you my understanding of the situation. But so for something passed in Congress so that for in 2022, they're going to change the threshold for reporting income as like selling income or any other kind of a lot of transactions. It used to be 20,000 or 20 transactions, and they dropped it down to 600.
$600,
which is like our average sale on here is well north of 600, right? So as a result, eBay, all the big guys too, had to start collecting Social Security numbers at some point in that funnel. Now there was a huge battle that went on, and we actually joined this 1099 coalition and kind of won a stay of execution right at the end of the year, where the IRS just kind of punted. And so it's kind of back in Congress's hands. But in the short term, Stripe is still just to make sure everything's on. And this is, some people don't like this. You have to give them, you're giving Stripe your Social Security, you're not giving it to us. But as of now, though, there's no reporting to the government unless it's over 20,000. But it came down to the end of December about that. It was almost going to be like everyone's going to have to report. Right. I mean, I sold $3,000 worth of just parts and stuff on this site last year.
Yeah, it's kind of a big jump to go from $20,000 to like $600.
I know. Well, so it was super arbitrary, and the $600 number, I don't know if you've ever employed 1099 employees. You have to report if you pay someone more than 600. So they just kind of pulled that out of their ass and threw that in there without, I think, really thinking about it, and it just caused a lot of confusion. But the truth is, and I can't give real tax advice to anybody, but like, unless you're really making a profit, but you can't really, most people aren't really profiting when they sell their bike stuff, because you probably paid more for it or about the same, at some point in its life, and it's just an old bike part. So you wouldn't, if you had any kind of good accountant, you're not going to pay. But the fact that it's annoying, though, that someone's going to have to report, on that. So yeah, I totally get it. It mostly caused confusion. It caused some kind of pushback with us, and we were like, well, look, eBay's doing it too. People didn't really remember to pay, if you haven't been on eBay, because they weren't asking until, this last year. But right. It's across the board, but it's annoying. I think sanity will prevail, and the 20,000 will remain. And that's my. It's like, it's no one really likes it.
Yeah, Matt here guessing $5.99.
Yeah, exactly. Very popular price point.
Right. So how, like, let's say we're talking about issues with shipping, like how are you guys navigating like problems between seller and buyer?
I have to knock wood. So far, we really haven't had any, in that we really encourage good photos and good descriptions. And I think we've had a couple people not ship when, and then we just refunded the money to the buyer. That's been really the only problem, but we haven't had anybody freak out about like, you didn't disclose this crack or whatever, and we will. But we are definitely plan to make sure everybody's happy at the end of the day. And we plan to be a little more seller friendly though than eBay. We're trying to make sure we have really great sellers and that we're a little more seller friendly. So for me, the last straw with me and eBay was I sold a brand new or almost new takeoff set of very high-end Mavic wheels on eBay, and the guy bought it right away. It was very weird. Like I priced him high, but with a make offer, and he bought it almost immediately without any questions at the asking price, which was frankly too high. So I was already a little like, this is a little strange.
Right.
And then the second he got them, he put in a damage report with, and they were perfectly packed in the original. And I was like, anyway, even though he wasn't really able to prove much of anything, eBay sided with him, locked my account for 6 weeks. And then they basically had to refund him like half the money, or it was like, and I was just like, that kind of annoyed me. So anyway, in terms of problems, we're definitely 100% very on it. You can always email Rob at BikeList, Dan at BikeList, info at BikeList, and try and take care of it.
Yeah. Here's a good question. So Tom asked, do you have public stats on sales completed or search for sold items?
So the trick for that right now is if you go to any brand page, you'll see all the stuff that's sold. Like, so if you go to like Thompson or if you wanted to see that salsa that we were talking about, and you went, so if you go to the footer and pull up salsa bikes, you'll see all the salsas that have sold, including that one. So that's that'll show you all the solds in any brand, if that makes sense. So or the Shimano page will show all the Shimano stuff.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. So you won't find it in the top nav. You'll find it in the bottom nav under brands, like under the footer. So go to brands.
Is it? Sorry, my camera's in the way, so
I can't see it because this is like too small.
Bike brands. Okay, I see it.
Yeah. So go to bike brands. Let's show them that salsa anyway while we're at it. So go to bike brands and then click on salsa. Salsa. I want to show off that salsa because I still love it so much. So I'm going to pull it up on mine just so I can see it.
Sold listings. So this a la carte.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll see that we've sold 3 salsas. We've sold the Bear Grease, the Blackthorn, and we've sold the a la carte. And anyway, there's that really pretty a la carte, which to me, that was really awesome. That popped up. Nice. But that's as much as we have for stats. Now, again, like we built this thing from scratch. We have a whole database. And so we do plan to keep exposing more as much data as possible, because that's really the fun part. Yeah. We just don't have that much data now because we're new. I love like Bring a Trailer. They have a scatter graph of like every car that's ever sold. So if you go to Porsche 911, you can see, and it's just great. It's nerdy stuff. That's fun.
Nice. Yeah. So Jared asks, what's the maximum amount of photos that they can add to a listing?
Can go, I don't think there is one. I think you can go absolutely bananas. I think you'll see there that says a little click to add more photos, because we didn't, to see more photos, because at first we didn't have that, and some people were just completely going crazy. But
Cook Brothers.
Oh yeah, no, this I almost bought this thing. It's my size too, but I was like, I don't need another thing.
Right.
But yeah, there's no max. Although I'll probably hear from the developer after I said that. But
so Ted here has a good question. Does BikeList have buyer or seller ratings like eBay has?
That's in the works as well. That's something we definitely plan to build. Right now, you can see if you click on someone's user ID, if they've sold other stuff, to give you some idea. So I think if you click on his user ID, you'll see
stuff and things.
Yeah, stuff and things. So if we click on him, he's sold 2 things and he's got 2 active.
Okay.
So that'll give you some idea. But yeah, again, these are all awesome features. We're a small team and we're building it from scratch. The problem with, because we've both been in the tech, and my co-founder is ex-Amazon, ex-Expedia, like pretty big marketplace stuff.
Yeah.
The problem with doing there's kind of off the shelf packages. If you want to spin up a marketplace quick, you can kind of do a Shopify. That wouldn't really work on peer-to-peer. There's some auction platforms, but the problem with just doing it off the shelf is that if you're successful, the first thing you're trying to do is how to migrate off that and then getting the data out. So our developer, Christian, if you're into fixies, you may have heard of this site, but it's his passion site, and he's hasn't done much with it in years, but he built a site called Pedal Room, which is still just a great, if you like fixies, it's a crazy site, really cool. So he's a big fixie writer.
So Matt asked, do you have anything personally listed currently?
Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff. So if you go to, my username is Rob. So if you just go to the top and swap out stuff and things for Rob, you'll probably see all my stuff.
Where's stuff and things?
Well, if you just look in the, if you look in the nav in the URL, in the URL.
Oh, I see. I see.
Just put Rob instead of stuff and things. It'll bring me up.
Okay.
There.
All right.
Yeah. So I was working at this one shop that went out of business, and so I have like 100 Bontrager head badges. So if you, those are amazing. I sent some to Keith Bontrager because he was like, I don't have any more, and I want to put some on my kids' pedal bikes.
Nice.
I mispriced those frogs because I'd forgotten that Speedplay had been acquired, and then immediately they got rid of the frogs. Luckily, I've got like 10 more sets. But yeah, I've got a bunch more Suntour that I pulled off this bike, so there'll be more. And I'm gonna go through my basement and get a bunch more stuff. But that's what if you like 90s Carnacks, those are almost new and they're very stylish.
Nice.
And that PDM jersey is awesome. It's just too small for me. A friend gave it to me. So
I should try listing some things.
It's fun. It's good to get rid of stuff, honestly, too. Like, sometimes you hoard stuff because you like it, but if you're like, I'm honestly never gonna put this on anything.
I need to hoard stuff for the YouTube channel just to make all these hack videos. Yeah. And like usually after I'm done with either the doing said hack or the review, then I just have like the stuff. Usually we do giveaways every week on our Patreon, so they get access to some pretty cool stuff for for being a member. But yeah, that's usually how I offload a lot of things.
Somebody just said, why is this better than eBay? So
why is this better than eBay?
That's a great question. I mean, that's the question, right? So the first, right now eBay's got 20 million times as much stuff, so we're never going to beat them on selection. Right now we're beating them on the lower fee, and just that we're only bike, and that everything's going to be tailored around bike stuff. So eBay is an incredible, huge, rickety, old, insane platform, and which is amazing. It's just but it's not suited for any one thing, So
it's a bazaar.
It is.
It's like a chaotic bazaar.
It is. And again, we're going to be a little more seller friendly, I think, than eBay at the end of the day. That's the goal with this. So, and we've having done a lot of car community stuff. I just love communities. I used to hang out at MTBR a lot back in the day. That's where I used to buy and sell. And that was the sad thing for me about Facebook, because Facebook came and destroyed all the forums, and now everyone's on Facebook groups. But I think people are getting sick of Facebook, and huge groups of people are leaving Facebook altogether. So ultimately, if we can build some more community, and that's another thing in the roadmap, to have a better place to just kind of hang out, even if you just want to check out bike stuff and talk bike stuff.
So Tom asked, do you integrate with point of sale systems like Lightspeed?
That is also on the list, because I think for bike shops that'd be amazing for them to be able to push a button and push inventory on. So that's something we're looking very closely at. Our developer, I did a cannabis startup, and we integrated with cannabis point of sale. So it's something I've done before, familiar with. So definitely looking at that because that's really cool. So great question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, we got Old Shovel.
Yeah, there he is. How's it going, man? You should check out his videos that he did for us. It's amazing. He was going through his whole, I think it's a video where he literally went through every bike he has, which is way worse than me. It's bad. It's bad and good. Bad in a good way. Good in a bad way.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. We're at 55 minutes. If you guys have any questions for Rob, shoot them in the comment section.
You can always email me, rob@bikelist.com, or DM me on Instagram anytime. I will reply as fast as I can.
Yeah. So how has the growth been for you? Is it as expected, faster than normal, or slower than hoped for?
I would say it's, given the very nominal marketing budget we've thrown at it, it's definitely faster.
Yeah.
I like the speed because sometimes companies actually grow too fast. If they raise a lot of money and have this huge marketing spend, and then you get kind of weird experiences. And we're trying to kind of grow it somewhat organically so that we can take care of people and make sure that we're doing it right. Like, we're not ever always gonna do everything right in the first take with this kind of stuff. So I really like, and that's why I like working, and talking to folks like you, because it's like you have smaller, really good communities. You actually have a pretty big one, pretty big audience. But you know what I mean? It's like, it kind of feels right anyway to me, the way we're growing. So I'm pretty happy with it.
What are you, what have you learned from looking at those like vintage car and guitar marketplaces that you're bringing to BikeList that didn't exist before in like a bike selling platform?
Yeah, I think, well, the kind of discoverability of it, like the curation aspect. Right now, the only curation we have right now is like what we call staff pick and vintage. But so that's a big one. And then I want to bring some of the kind of community aspects, and that's the hope and the dream. Like, bring a trailer, just great commenting, very active group of people. I just like, it's just make it a fun place to hang out when you're at work or whatever. You just make it that place that you want to come check out, just to see, like, hey, there's a Cogswell. I haven't seen one of those in 6 years. That's cool.
Do you know how like a site like Bring a Trailer became so popular, or like how it built up its core?
100%. So Bring a Trailer started as just a blog, and it's called Bring a Trailer because they are blogging about cars that were not even running. So it was like the nichiest of the niche, like non-running rusty Alfa Romeos and launches and MGs, and just nerding out on that stuff.
Right.
And they were actually mostly blogging eBay listings. They would find the crappiest, weirdest eBay listings and blog about them. So it became again, that kind of curation, like somebody really digging in eBay, finding these hidden gems and writing stories about them. And they did that for 7 years, and then basically almost got forced into the business of the auction because everybody was like, well, I kind of want to sell my car here, but you're just a blog.
Right.
So they launched an auction.
Okay.
So they're kind of an overnight success for people who were kind of watching it casually, but they were, I think it started in like 07 or 08 ish,
So they had a really long kind of like runway to build a community and gain trust. And so when they decided to turn the store on, there were people.
Yeah. Another interesting one is, if you follow the car space, Doug DeMuro started Cars and Bids. And he started from the position of a massively popular YouTube channel. And he partnered up with some guys who know how to build a kick-ass website, because that website is fantastic. So that was another kind of similar one. And they're doing a great job over there. And they just focus on 80s and 90s cars, which is kind of fun. They really picked a niche.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think there's something to niching down and finding like a, really tight knit community rather than to do like all the bikes.
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, so the interesting thing to me about Pink Bike is that although they kind of do all bikes, they're really kind of a mountain bike brand ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to see if there's a way to have everybody from BMX all the way to even maybe triathletes. I don't think we have one triathlete yet, but I kind of like all bikes, and I kind of like, maybe we'll have a penny farthing someday. That'd be
Here you go. Weird bikes. That's a category.
We haven't had any tall bikes yet. We need some
Yeah.
tall bikes. My developer's, I think, welding himself one right now. But have you ridden a tall bike before?
No, I've not. I've been exposed to that. We used to live in Portland, and there were many a tall bike.
Yeah. But gravel, mountain, all that kind of good stuff for sure. I don't want to just be a roadie website.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, we're at the hour mark. Let me stop the screen share. Thanks everyone in the chat. If you guys have enjoyed this conversation, definitely check out the store, pick up some merch.
Should list them on BikeList there.
I know. There you go. Maybe I should. Because we do like basically a bake sale every month to keep the content going.
That's awesome.
But Rob, thanks for hanging out on the stream.
Thanks for having me.
Your site all luck. I might put a couple things on there.
That'd be amazing.
And test it out. And if you guys enjoyed this live stream, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Pick up, sorry, stickers stuck to the table here. Pick up some stickers. And coming up on the YouTube channels, we've got a bunch of interesting products. Actually, I'm going to grab one really quickly. You guys know I am a fan of all things front bag related. Check this out. So this goes on your steer tube, and this sucker bolts onto it. And you can get these in different sizes. So this is this new hotness. We've got some really interesting products that are coming in to be reviewed. So hit that subscribe button. Check out the merch store. Join us on Patreon. And as always, keep the supple side down.